Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and today we're going to be taking a look at Warhammer the Old World. So there has just been released an article from Games Workshop about the Old World, part of what they call the Old World Development Diaries. And here they have revealed the main factions that are going to be sort of taking the center stage in the Old World. And they have a very handy, very handy sheet here telling us that the good people, and well, we have good and evil. I'm not quite sure. Can you actually divide factions that like black and white? I'm not quite sure. Usually can't, at least not in 40k or Age of Sigmar, but perhaps you can in the Old World. That remains to be seen, I guess. So you have the Empire of Man, you have the Dwarfs, Bretonnia, Wood Elves and High Elves. Those are the, well, quote-unquote good guys. And then for the evil, we have Orc and Goblin tribes. I don't like that much. I always think, I mean, Orcs, in my book, they're not evil. They're more like a force of nature or something. I don't think they're evil. They're just out to, I mean, they like to fight, and they are willing to fight anyone who comes, you know, who stands in their way. I think that is very inclusive, and I think that kind of makes it hard to just call them the bad guys, right? Well, anyway, you have the Orc and Goblins, the Warriors of Chaos, Beastmen, and Tomb Kings. I'm really excited to see the Tomb Kings back, actually, because I started in this hobby just a relatively short while after the whole thing with the Old World no longer being a thing and Age of Sigmar is starting out. So I had never had the chance to get some Tomb Kings, and I love ancient Egypt. So, I mean, I'm quite excited for the Tomb Kings. So they say here, these armies will have rules published alongside the launch of the Old World and will be pivotal players in the events covered in narrative expansions and supplements. Okay. And it also says fans of these armies can also look forward to some shiny new miniatures that will accompany the return of many classic kits. So yeah, I don't think that's a huge surprise. There'll be some new stuff, and they will also be re-releasing some old stuff. I think that's what everyone had expected. I really hope they, you know, make some really cool new stuff for the Beastmen, because they need it. And I hope that those kits will also be able to be used in Age of Sigmar as well. That would be really cool. I also hope when they do stuff for the dwarves, I really like the old dwarf sculpts. A lot of them are so fun. You know, you have all the, like, with the beers and everything. It's just a fun faction, and I hope they keep that charm and don't make them too much like what you see in Age of Sigmar with the Caradron Overlords. I mean, they're great sculpts. It's a beautiful army, but I don't think it's really that much fun. So I hope they'll keep some of the charms of the older armies here. But let's see. So they have a whole story about why they have these particular factions, and that's all grand. And then they also say, what about the other factions, which I think is a little bit more interesting. Certain factions people remember from Warhammer Fantasy Battles are not part of the narrative we're telling with the Old World, but will be provided with rules at the launch of the game. And that's and those factions are Dark Elves, Skaven, Vampire Courts, Deamons of Chaos, Ogre Kingdoms, Lizardmen, and Chaos Dwarfs. And I have to admit, I don't get that. I think those are some of the most fun and interesting factions that have sort of the best, just some of the best sculpts and some of the best options in the whole Warhammer fantasy universe. I mean, I get that, you know, they already have 2 or 3 kinds of elves. They have Wood Elves and High Elves, fine. Okay, I get that you don't want Dark Elves as well, fine. But Skaven, I mean, ratmen who are almost as likely to blow themselves to pieces as the enemy to pieces with their weird contraptions, how would you not want them as one of your main armies? There is probably a really good reason for it. I just really think the Skaven are a fun and cool faction. I guess Vampire Counts, okay, you're going to be having the Tomb Kings, oh, fine. Deamons of Chaos I don't really understand. I mean, demons, they would sort of exist everywhere, wouldn't they? But again, it has something to do with the narrative focus, and I actually like the fact that they try to have a relatively tight focus on the narrative stuff, because I think that is probably what's going to be drawing a lot of people back into Warhammer the Old World. So I guess it makes sense. Those are not the factions I personally would have chosen to leave out. Then you also have the Ogre Kingdoms and the Lizardmen, my favorite faction. And you have the Chaos Dwarfs. However, all is not lost and all is not bad, because it actually says here, these legacy faction army lists will be made available for free. Awesome. As PDFs, as a service to fans who have these classic armies on their shelf, so they can still bring them to battle for old time's sake. We don't plan to publish rules for Warhammer Age of Sigmar miniatures, except for those units that were part of the game and setting during the final edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Okay, so newer Age of Sigmar minis won't be getting rules, but stuff that are sort of taken over from Warhammer Old World to Age of Sigmar when the change happened, those you can still use. So I think that's fair. Because they are for two different game systems, that's fine. And I really like that they're going to be making the rules free as a PDF for people who have these armies that are not going to be the focus of the Old World. I think that's really cool. I actually think that's quite decent of GW as a way of. I mean, they're not even going to be selling new models then to these people who have these older armies. It's just going to be possible to actually play the game with what you already have. I think that's really nice. And then they have a story about what are the other armies doing that are not part of the narrative story, and that's fine. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a shame that they have chosen. I mean, yeah, I would not have left, especially I wouldn't have left the Skaven out. They're just so much fun. But I'm really, really glad to see them bring Tomb Kings back. Also, I mean, perhaps it shouldn't be a surprise that these are the factions they're going to be focusing on, because if we look at this article from October last year, they showed off some artworks for the Old World, and so you can see here you have a Bretonnian archer, you have a Tomb King's chariot, and you have, of course, a very lovely knight. And then you have an orc on a boar, which is always that's always lovely. So it shouldn't perhaps come as a big surprise, but still, I would really have liked to see new Skaven stuff. That would have been cool. We had another intro about the Old World in March this year, where they showed off some stuff, and that's probably, that's Bretonnia and Tomb King stuff, and I think the details, they look really nice and crisp and sharp, and I'm really excited to see what they'll be bringing out for Tomb Kings. As I said, I was too late to get some Tomb Kings when I started in the hobby, but I've always liked the look of them. I mean, the skeletons, which is cool. I actually already have a skeleton army. I have the Ossiarch Bone Reapers for Age of Sigmar, but I mean, really ancient Egypt skeletons, that's right up my alley. So I'm really excited to see that, and I believe they said somewhere that they would also be bringing back the giant Sphinx thing for the Tomb Kings, and I've always loved the look of that mini. So if they are re-releasing that, I'm totally getting it. And yeah, we can also see these two models that they showed off recently when they had the huge reveal with all sorts of things. And another thing about the whole Old World situation is that I'm a little bit sad to see that they're going to be releasing stuff in resin. Yeah, I don't like resin, and I would really prefer if they did them in plastic, of course, but at least I don't think it's supposed to be fine cast anymore. It's supposed to be a different kind of resin. But yeah, I think the sculpts look beautiful. I think, the Bretonnian Paladin looks it's a little bit slightly overdone somehow, a little bit too busy for my taste, whereas I really love the Tomb Kings model. So yeah, but I'm excited to see what they bring out. I'm a little bit conflicted with the old world, with my thoughts about it, because on the one hand, I think it's cool. I mean, more models is always great, and I especially think it's really a great option for people who have been missing Warhammer the old world, who has been, you know, really loved that setting, loved the lore, loved the stories, loved the characters, loved, you know, the square bases even, that they'll be able to bring that back and get the gaming experience that they really want to have. On the other hand, I know perhaps, of course, it's different in different places around the world, but at least in my local area, we are a few people who play Age of Sigmar, but it's not like huge, whereas 40k, that's just like a really big crowd of people who play 40k, and Age of Sigmar is much smaller. And so I could be a little bit worried that you might, with the old world coming back, that you would run the risk of sort of fragmenting an already smaller player base. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope it just gets more people excited about the hobby and get more people into the hobby. You know, you also have those Total War games, of course, so maybe you'll even get more people from there who really like the setting in those particular games, and so they don't want Age of Sigmar, they want this game. So, I mean, it might really work out and you just get more people to play with, but I could just be a tiny bit worried that you might just see, you know, the fantasy gamers sort of fragment into two, and that would be a shame, because at least in my area we are already a little sort of too few people playing Age of Sigmar, at least to my taste. So I hope that won't be the case, but yeah, I really like the models. I would love to see more new models for every single faction, of course, but I like the fact that they're open about these are the ranges we are focusing on, and I really like that they are coming out with free rules for the other factions. And then I hope later on, if this relaunch is a success, I don't think you could rule out them actually doing stuff with the other factions as well. So I don't think we should give up hope on seeing new stuff for those as well. And again, they are, after all, bringing Tomb Kings back, so that makes that makes me really happy. I don't think the old world is going to be a game for me particularly. I don't have a lot of nostalgia as with the whole setting. As I said, I started in the hobby after the old world was sort of over, and so I don't miss it or anything. And I don't see myself starting a third big army game. I already have Age of Sigmar and 40k, and I don't think I'm going to be wanting to start a third game, just because I have more than enough on my plate with finishing up armies for those two games. So I don't think it's going to be a game for me particularly, but if other people are really excited and are going to be having a lot of fun, then I think that's amazing, of course. I just hope it won't fragment the player base for Age of Sigmar versus the old world, and then I hope a lot of people will be really, really happy with getting rules for models that perhaps just have been collecting dust on a shelf for about 10 years or something like that. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts about the old world. Of course, it's very limited so far what we know about it, but I could be very interested in hearing what you think. Do you think there is a risk of splitting the player base, the fantasy player base, in two, or do you think we'll just see more people coming in? What are your thoughts on their focus, on Games Workshop's focus on these particular factions that they're going to be releasing both new stuff for and re-releasing older stuff for? Are there any things that you would have done differently? Are there any factions you hope to see get their time in the spotlight later on? All sorts of things. Let me know. Any sort of comments or questions or anything, just let me know, and we can take we can have a little chat about that in the comment section. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!